All right, how about a little bit of document setup and setting up my document's color mode? Well, here's what I can do. I'm going to go all the way up to the File menu here, and then look for Document Color Mode. So what I can do is I can switch my document between CMYK and RGB. If you're not sure what these are, CMYK is what we would call our process colors or our process inks. Whenever I'm sending a document out to print, I'd want to make sure that I'm inside the CMYK color space. RGB, on the other hand, is used in web design. So if I'm using Illustrator to create some web graphics or a web interface or something like that, I'd want to make sure that my document color space is set to RGB. Now, in terms of actually setting up my document, I could go to Document Setup here underneath the File menu, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Document Setup button way up at the top of my screen, and that brings me into this dialog box here. Now, what I can do inside this dialog box is I can set my unit of measurements if I want. There's that bleed again. I can also decide how I want to set transparency and some type options. But what I really want to show you here is something brand new inside Illustrator CS4, and that is multiple artboards. I promised you I'd get back to this. So here it is. I'm going to click on Edit Artboards, and that brings me into this new view mode here inside Illustrator CS4. So what I can do here, think of this as changing your paper size. So what I could do is I could come up to the top here, and I could choose a different paper size if I wanted to. I could even get into film sizes or banner ad sizes, this sort of thing. Or what I could even do, and you're going to love this, is I could create multiple artboards. So I'm going to click on this new artboard button here. I can actually drop a second artboard into my Illustrator file here inside Illustrator CS4. I'll just scroll over a little bit so you can see what's happening. Now, with the second artboard selected, I could set the orientation for the artboard, the X and Y coordinates. We'll talk about that more in an upcoming chapter. But more importantly, I could set the width and the height for my second artboard. So, for example, maybe I decide that I want a 5-inch by 5-inch artboard, something like that. Lock that in. Go back to my first artboard. Maybe I'll change him to 8.5 by 14. Something like that. Or, of course, I could grab these little handles here and drag out custom sizes. Something like this. If I want to get rid of an artboard, just click on the little trash can button way up at the top of your screen, and now I'm back to one artboard. How do I get out of this mode? Click on any tool inside your toolbox. I'll click on my selection tool. Now, another way to edit your artboards here in Illustrator is to click on Illustrator CS4's new Artboard tool. He's found right above the hand tool. I'll click on him. That brings me into the exact same mode. I can go and edit an existing artboard, go and create a new artboard, everything that you just saw a second ago. And to get out of this mode, again, just click on any tool inside the toolbox. Now, let me show you something pretty cool here. I'm going to go and create a brand new document here inside Illustrator. So just File, New. Back into this dialog box here, I'm going to call this guy Artboards. And remember this number of artboards option that we had here. I decide that I want to create a document that has 4 artboards. Now, what I can do is I can decide on the spacing between those artboards. I'll leave the default here. And I can also decide on how I want to arrange all of my artboards. So I'm going to go in a single row here. 8.5 by 11 is just fine. I'll click on OK. And there's an Illustrator file now with 4 artboards. Imagine 4 different pages inside my Illustrator document. For years and years now, Illustrator users have been crying for multiple pages, and this is Adobe's response. So don't forget, I can always go back into this new artboard button here, click on him, go and adjust my individual artboards here. Very, very easy stuff. And of course, the icing on the cake is when I go and convert my Illustrator file to a PDF, or if I print it out, each of my artboards prints out as a separate page. Fantastic stuff here inside Illustrator CS4. So there's our tour of the Illustrator interface, setting things up and customizing. You saw some preferences and, of course, some navigation and setting up your artboards. It's all good stuff here inside Illustrator CS4.